I've always loved traveling, especially with my mom, and when I was 7, she wanted to take me on a 20-day trip to the East Coast. We were West Coast natives, so the idea of going across the country to New York, Philadelphia, and Washington, D.C. was very exciting to me. I was also fascinated with history, so everything came together and the trip was looking to be perfect. We got on the plane and landed in Newark pretty late, staying at my cousin's with him and his girlfriend, both of whom were attending Princeton at that time. My mom and I got our plan all set up for the next few days, with our eyes on sights and experiences like the Empire State Building, Statue of Liberty, Central Park, and a game at the old Yankee Stadium in the Bronx. Finally, game day came and I was very excited because my father had instilled a young love of baseball within me. We made our way through the city, up to the gates and into our seats where we stayed for the majority of our time there. Due to some extenuating circumstances, we missed the first inning, but my excitement was not diminished in the slightest. I was very hungry, so my mom took me to get a hot dog because it's a baseball game, and that's just usual practice. We found our way back to our seats, and my mom was complaining of needing to visit the bathroom. She resolved to leave me in my seat to relieve herself with one resolute command. "Do not leave," she said. "Not for anybody except me." I blew her off. Of course, I wouldn't leave my seat. Why would I? My hot dog and the men in white uniforms who threw a ball around kept me glued to my seat. Until I dropped my food, at least. It had been some time since my mom left, but at that moment, a woman in a uniform of remarkably vague assignment approached me. I remember she gave me the most hideous smile I think I have ever seen in my life to date. She let an abhorrent smell out of her mouth, and she asked in a slurred voice if I'd liked another hot dog, gesturing to the one on the ground. It was a no-brainer. Despite the woman's hygiene and demeanor, I was not a child to turn down free food. She gripped my hand like a vice after my approval and swiftly began to guide me, nearly dragging me behind her up the stairs. Behind me, after a few steps, I was thankful to hear the stern voice I would come to resent. "Where are you going with my son?" My mother let a shrill tone carry up the stadium, so some attendees noticed and looked at her, and then at the woman. She was mortified, and I felt my hand drop to my side, and the woman began backpedaling up the stairs as my mom retrieved me, all the while defending herself. My mom didn't do anything about it. She didn't go to any authorities. I believe she was just happy to have her hands on me again, and too scared, thinking about what could have been were she a few minutes later. A cacophony of scolding berated me, but only for a moment before she quit and told me to watch the game. Come to think of it, I never got the other hot dog. So, oddly uniformed woman that I met in 2008 at the New York Yankee Stadium, let's not meet again. In the fall of 2015, I began college in a very small town in the middle of nowhere. Its population as of 2019 is 55,489. This town was in the middle of the Midwestern state that I lived in the middle of the Great Plains. The town was pretty much only existent because of the college. It was a state college, which has about 20,000 students a year. As you could imagine, the college brought in a plethora of faculty, business, and really put the town on the map. I personally stuck out like a sore thumb, though. You see, even though I lived in the Bible Belt, I had been a Wiccan since I was 15, and I never identified with Jesus and God when I grew old enough to dissect the Christian faith. A big aspect about my personality is that I am very accepting. I mention this because it ultimately led to some chaos later on. I'm the class clown mom friend type. I'm sure you know that type. Goofy and caring, pretty much ride or die. So I was in the middle of nowhere at the beginning of my college career. I was surrounded by strangers who were just as nervous and awkward as I was. Due to being in the middle of the Bible Belt, my friends really loved my tarot card, medium, and future-seeing persona. Quickly, while making new friends, I ran into a few folks who wanted to learn how to read the tarot. We lived in the same dorm community. They were nice, and I loved teaching. So that's how I ended up being into cahoots with Alex, Davis, April, Sam, Rosie, Katie, and Sky. They were friends from the year prior, so I was sort of folded into the friend group as the newest, shiniest object. After mentioning that I read tarot, the group was over the moon. One afternoon, in the basement of our dormitory, I had a tarot reading session for the group. It was a lazy fall day, mid-November, surrounded by soda cans, Kit Kats, and our schoolwork. I began to read each and every group member's cards. With reading, you start to peek into a person's soul. Each card gives you a sliver of personhood. I quite regularly have had to console people for the truth that lies within the reading. I often had to play the role of a therapist after the cards read people for filth. So, it was unsurprising to me when the group sat in shock and curiosity, goosebumps prickling their arms. It was a normal response. Hours flew by. I did general readings, question-based readings, love life readings, you name it. And as the time rolled on, more of my talent slipped out. Soon, I was reading palms, giving psychic advice, talking about my Wiccan journey. I believe that what you take from the earth, you should give back. So it is inherent to my belief system to do everything with love and to never mean any ill will. Alex asked me if I could teach them about my belief systems, then Katie, then Davis, and before I knew it, everyone in the group had asked for an impromptu teaching. Don't get this wrong, I love teaching, but more so, I craved this positive attention. My childhood was quite awful. I was very abused, and I just wanted people who cared about me. These people were some of the first to really seem to care about me, who were really interested in what I had to say. So, with rose-colored glasses, I began a full little info session with my brand new friends. I didn't see the warning signs. What started out as little meetings in the study rooms turned into hour-long lectures where the group hung to every word that I said. And as we got closer, more of my horrific past was uncovered. I shared tales of my trauma, of all the times that I should have died, of the beatings, of how my mom tried to murder me. I thought that I had found my tribe, and I was really excited and pleased to be around folks. And I didn't start to see the warning signs until it was too late. Things went smoothly for a while. A routine of teaching the group, hanging out, having dinner, talking about normal things like school and what was going on in the dormitory communities. Things felt pretty normal, and I really liked it. One of the group members, Davis, was transitioning female to male, and he struggled a lot with his identity. He was raised in a pretty strict household, so his transition wasn't taken very well by his family. He also struggled with BPD, which made people in the group uncomfortable. I think because they didn't understand it. Keep in mind, mental health at that time wasn't really something that people were open about as it was in the Bible Belt. So, Davis would occasionally act erratic, start fights, get worked up, and cry randomly, and so much more. I was sure that part of this was due to transitioning. I can't imagine how emotional and hard it would be to go through that. What really set things off was when Davis started doubting if he should fully transition or not. Davis had already been on testosterone for quite some time, was male presenting, but did not have top surgery yet. One day, right before spring break, Davis had worn a dress, makeup, and heels around campus. At that time, I thought it was kind of strange, but I figured it was Davis's life, so it didn't matter to me. The rest of the group, however, started to obsess over this. It was very out of character, but the group thought there was more to it. When Davis left for class, adorned in his dress and heels, Alex started speculating. There was a long, weird history between Alex, Davis, and Sky. One where Davis was sort of relationship-like flirting with both Alex and Sky, creating some animosity between them. Alex and Sky were best friends, but Davis had sort of wiggled his way into both of their hearts. Alex wasn't one to really discuss their feelings, so they pretended that this love triangle didn't affect them. But Alex had become bitter. After Davis had walked out and Sky in tow, Alex began their speculation. What's wrong with him? Why is he acting like that? It's like I hardly know him. Katie, one for the gossip, joined in. It honestly is like Davis is a completely different person. I don't know who this is, but I hate him. He's taking advantage of Sky. The rest of the conversation began to snowball. It was a frustrating situation for those who had been in the friend group for a long time, but I was pretty much indifferent. I didn't know what was going on, and honestly, I thought that people were kind of making a fuss out of nothing. If you're uncomfortable with what's happening, then talk it out. I digress. I had been working on a term paper, not really minding too much about the conversation until April asked me, "Do you think he could be messing around with some bad magic?" I shrugged. Davis had asked about love spells and other stuff that I don't really mess with. He was really into the idea that he could put a spell on someone and make them fall in love with him. I had told him that taking away free will is something you should never mess with. The universe doesn't do kindly to those who harm, obstruct, or take free will away from someone. April had been there when Davis asked. When Alex looked questioningly at her, April spilled the beans. Something in Alex's face contorted, as if you could see their heartbreak turn into pure rage. Alex excused themselves, and that was that. I remember being a little stressed about the situation, because I hated conflict back then. I was spending spring break at Rosie's house. Her and Sam lived in the same town, and Alex and Katie would be there too. When I agreed to spend the break with them, it was before the drama had started, but by the time we got to spring break, it was too late to change my plans. The whole break was spent listening to the conspiracy grow. The four of them had begun to elaborate on this bad magic idea. Rosie thought maybe Davis was possessed. I told them that I didn't think it was likely. I had a feeling things were starting to go awry. Things felt weird. I had never been in the presence of a group of people who just accuse another of being possessed. Things were weird. When I shot down the possession idea, they mentioned the time Davis growled the week prior. We were playing a game online when Davis growled as a response. I had jokingly said that he sounded like a demon. I still told them that it was nothing, but they would not let up. Realizing I was in trouble, I came up with a quick solution. I told them that we could do some protection spells. If anything was going awry, we would be okay. And that seemed to appease them well enough. Luckily, they left the topic alone until we were heading back to campus. "We need to do an exorcism on Davis," Rosie said, a wild look in her eyes. Rosie had dabbled in paganism before she had met me, so she already had a solid set of beliefs and theories. The issue here, however, was that Rosie and Sam thought that they could use their paganism as a tool to control those around them. I tried to correct this thought process as it was against my belief system, which they seemed really receptive to, until they felt threatened. Davis had sent a text message to Rosie about some drama with Alex and Sky, sending Rosie into a spiral. And before I knew it, the narrative shifted into Davis is possessed by the demon Lilith. Now, I don't know what to do. I told them that he wasn't. I said it didn't make sense. But I was too late. I didn't know. I figured that if I go back to campus, took some time away from them, that everyone would calm down. So that's what I did. I tried to do as much damage control as I could on the rest of the ride, but when I got back to the dorm, I locked myself away in my room. When asked, I just said I was behind on work from spring break, and things were quiet, and I felt safe. I figured it was temporary insanity or something. I was sat downstairs talking to April a few days after that I had locked myself away. We were just chit-chatting about what she had done over the break when I saw Rosie and Katie rush past the sitting room. They were frantic. They waved at us when they ran past, but didn't say anything. A bit later, Sky ran in the same direction, crying. When he saw us, he rushed in. "Davis said he's a demon and needed to be exorcised." I jumped to my feet and started running towards his dorm. Sam and Alex stood in the hallway when they saw me, Sky, and April walking up. "You're not allowed in there. Davis is a danger to you," Sam said. "He admitted he was possessed." "He's not possessed. Let me in there." We bickered for a while, until I said that if they were going to do an exorcism, that they needed me in there. Nothing could have prepared me for what I saw. Davis was laid on the bed, tied to the bed frame, and he was crying. Rosie and Katie were inside, setting things around the bed, and Rosie held a tattered old book in her hand. They were sage burning on a plate. Katie yelled something, but I couldn't focus. I just kept thinking that these people were fucking crazy. All I could see was Davis crying on the bed. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know that I was possessed. I didn't know that I was going to hurt you," Davis wailed, shaking. "We're going to get the demon out, and you're going to be okay." I just kept saying that he wasn't possessed, but nobody was listening to me. That's when I saw the knife. It was bronze in color, with something dark crusted on it. It sat in a bowl from the dining hall, sat in the mix of what looked like salt and what looked like blood. In shock, I looked over to Rosie, spotting a bloody gaze on her arm. It was like my world stopped. At this point, I had realized that these people were crazy. I didn't think they were killer crazy. I had seen enough scary movies that I could only imagine what was going to happen. So I grabbed the knife and cut through the cloth that tied Davis down, grabbed his wrist, and bolted from the room. I called Davis's mom and told her to come and get him. We went to my dorm until she got there, with me just trying to talk some sense into him. Davis went home shortly after. Rosie, Katie, Sam, and Alex were blowing up my phone. April had come with me when I ran out with Davis. When he had gone home, she started to talk about how I needed to be careful because if Hillary Clinton were elected president, because I was special, my mother had told me that she had to kill me or else the government would get me, and that I was special. April knew this. Apparently she believed it too. I just nodded, telling her that I needed to go to sleep. After she left, I started filing paperwork to transfer schools. I moved 2 hours away, blocking everyone in group's phone numbers, and I couldn't believe everything that had happened. But looking back, I started to see the signs were there all along. The passing, "You're like a witchy Jesus," or the blind faith in everything that I said. The most memorable moment was when I told them that the sky was actually green. I was just joking around, being a sarcastic asshole. But April and Alex just nodded. When I said that I was joking, April defended them, saying, "Well, technically the sky just reflects the earth, so it is kind of green." Hindsight is 2020. I actually started a cult, creating a small hellhole where everyone blindly believed everything that I said and thought that I was the modern-day Jesus. So, to my former cult members, let's never meet again. Also, please get help. All of this happened when I was a kid, about 5 or 6 years old. I was living in a small 2-bedroom apartment with my mom, dad, and my younger brother. Our apartment was located on the first floor of a 4-story apartment building, and I was sleeping in a small room with my brother, who was 3 or 4 years old at that time, and my parents' room was right next to ours. The living room was across the hallway and had a small balcony which faced the courtyard of the building. It wasn't the best part of town, but a very safe city where crimes very rarely ever took place. Still, my parents were cautious and always closed and locked all of the doors. One night, I still remember very vividly, I woke up because I heard somebody walking around, and I saw a dark figure standing in the middle of the room. At first, I thought it was my mom taking my brother back to his bed, as he still often went into their room when he had nightmares. But then I realized my brother was sleeping safe and sound, as I could hear him breathing slowly and calmly. Also, the figure was bigger and wider than my mom. Since it was so dark in the room, I couldn't tell if it was a man or a woman. In fact, I wasn't even sure if it was a real person at all, or just a shadow. In the past, I had often had trouble sleeping at night because I believed that shadows in my room were monsters staring at me. My mother always told me that if I closed my eyes, they couldn't hurt me. And so, I closed my eyes and tried to get back to sleep. After a little time, I want to say a few minutes, but it might have just been seconds, my brother woke up and started crying. He got up and ran into my parents' bedroom, and I kept laying still in my bed, keeping my eyes closed so the shadows would go away. And the next thing that I remember was waking up in the morning as if nothing had ever happened. Now I know you could easily brush this off as a kid having a nightmare, but hear me out. Here's where things get creepy. At breakfast, my brother couldn't stop talking about the men he saw, the men who were watching us, and my father told him to stop talking such nonsense until I said that I saw a man too. Now, my father got a bit angry, saying that if we kept talking about scary stories like this, we'd have trouble falling asleep at night. But my mom started freaking out. She said that in the middle of the night, she too woke up to a strange noise. She looked up and saw a man standing in the doorway. When she reached over to get her glasses and take a better look, the man was gone. She also thought it was just a shadow. A few moments later, my brother came running into her room. We immediately looked at all the doors and windows. The main door was locked. However, we discovered that the balcony door was unlocked. My parents checked all our belongings, every valuable item we had, but nothing was missing. Everything was exactly the way it was the evening before. We reported the incident to the police, but they weren't able to find any signs of a break-in. No fingerprints, nothing. My parents must have forgotten to lock the balcony door that night before. Needless to say, none of us slept well the next couple of nights. Thankfully, however, this was the only time these men ever came to our house. The fact that nothing had been taken always made it feel even creepier to me. With burglars, at least you know they're after your stuff and not you, right? So, to the strange men watching me sleep, I sincerely hope we never meet again. Hey folks, I'm kind of new, and this is the first story that I submit here, so let's get started. I must clarify that this didn't happen only to me, but my uncle too. This was after Christmas Eve party when everyone went home. I decided to stay because my cousin and I were watching a movie. My uncle, who used to walk his dogs into the woods next to a park, went off to take them out. Before this, my aunt told him not to do that because it was too dark out there. It was around 4 or 5 a.m. maybe, but of course he didn't care much, and he went off anyway. My aunt was still worried, so I went along with him. Once there, nothing wrong seemed to happen. Everything was quiet. My uncle and his dogs were having a relaxing walk as usual, and I wasn't really paying attention to the surroundings, when suddenly, the dogs went still. This wasn't that strange. They always stop their way to stare or bark to other animals that they've noticed, like rats, birds, insects, or even other dogs. However, this time was different. When the dogs got still, my uncle and I noticed something was going wrong. The dogs weren't angry or curious. They were kind of nervous, anxious, and afraid. One of the dogs, the largest one, was growling and shaking. As my uncle started to get worried about the situation, we heard it. People in the woods. We didn't see how many because of the darkness, and they were saying something. "We all gather here by the blood of..." and a couple more lines which were incomprehensible. As my uncle and I heard that, he yelled for his dogs to follow him out of the woods. And as we all left, he turned his head back and he only saw a slight movement of branches and shrubs, perhaps because these people were trying to hide. After all of that happened, he hasn't walked his dogs near those woods, nor when it gets dark neither. So, to the strangers in the woods, let's not meet. Hi, thanks for watching the video. I really appreciate it. If you want to send me a story to read, feel free to do so. My email is in the description of the video. And if you want to follow me on my social media, just to get updates or maybe to talk, the links and info for my Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram accounts are also in the description. And finally, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. and turn that bell on to be notified for upcoming surprises. And remember, your fear feeds me.